Hi, I'm Katie Santo with the Email Direct Service team at NYU, and today we are going to talk about the message release process in the new Email Direct powered by Emma. So there are a couple of different scenarios that you might come across, and it's all dependent on your specific user access, the sub-account you have access to, and the audience members that sub-account can send messages to. Our goal with the new Email Direct is to give our users more autonomy with releasing their messages. So for the most part, you will either be able to release messages on your own, or there will be one or two people centrally within your team that have access to release messages on your behalf. Okay, in this first example, I am a user that can release messages on my own. There are two things that I want to point out here. First is that you will have access to the audience tab, okay? And then the second thing is this button that says review and send, okay? So if you see that, you will be able to release on your own. So we're gonna go ahead and click that button. And what's gonna happen is we are gonna be taken to our preview screen for releasing this message. We will see a preview of our message on the left. We have the option to choose our recipients over here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and select this demo group. We have our subject line, our sender information, but more importantly, at the very bottom, we see the blue Send Now button or the Schedule for Later button. So if you are seeing these options, you can release on your own. If you were to hit Send Now, that's it. There's no one else is going to have an additional approval. Your message will be released to the audience members that you choose up at the top under Choose Recipients. You can also schedule for later. This is a new feature in the new Email Direct is you can actually schedule a date and time for your message to go out. So you can do this well in advance and kind of set it and forget it. So that's one example of how you might release messages in the new Email Direct. Okay, so the next scenario for releasing messages in the new Email Direct is if someone else needs to approve your messages. So I want to point out something here. This particular account does have access to that audience tab. However, if we look in the top right, it says next. It does not say review and send. If you do not see the audience tab at all, then yes, someone definitely needs to release your message for you. But in this scenario, we have someone with what we refer to as editor access. So they can access the audience tab, but they cannot release the message on their own. Who actually releases that message is going to depend on the specific group that you're in. So for example, a lot of our schools, they will have one or two dedicated people who will be releasing those messages on your behalf. And for some central units, depending on the audience that they have access to, it's actually released by our central team, but our goal is to do that for as few groups as possible because again, we would like you to have more autonomy over your messages. So going back to the scenario where someone needs to release on my behalf, so I click this blue next button, and very similar to the first scenario, I will be taken to a preview screen of my message where I see the preview on the left side of my screen over here. I can also select my recipients, so I'm still seeing all of the same options I saw as before, except at the very bottom, instead of the send option or schedule for later, I have schedule and submit. So what I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, I would like my message to go out at this date and time, and I am submitting it for approval. Now, very important for you to note here is that the time you select for when this email goes out. So as you can see, it is 10:56, and by default, it wants to send it in like the next top of the hour. This is not a good idea because what will happen is that someone still needs to click approve, and the person who needs to approve and release that message, they can't approve a message if it's past that time. So if I schedule this to go out at 11 and my supervisor doesn't see that request until 11:05, they are going to encounter an error. So because you can schedule messages far in advance using the new Email Direct, I strongly recommend that you take advantage of that feature. You don't want to submit things at the last minute. I do recommend scheduling them well in advance by at least a few days. I personally sometimes schedule messages a week in advance just to give myself peace of mind. So maybe I want this to go out on the 8th and at 11 a.m. and then I can click submit for approval. and my supervisor or the person with that approval access in my particular sub account will get that notification, and then they can release my message on my behalf. And we can see here, it is now moved to pending approval. So who actually approves your messages, again, is going to depend on your sub account. For the most part, if you are requesting for approval and you are a member of a school, it is going to be someone within that school, whether it be someone from the central communications or IT team, or maybe it is your supervisor within your particular department. So it's all going to depend on that particular school's needs. Each one is a little bit different. If you are part of a central administrative unit, it could either be someone within your team or potentially our team. And if you're not sure, you are more than welcome to ask, and we will let you know who that person is or who those people are. That way you can reach out for support. For the most part, you will know who your approver is. And I can see on this screen messages that are already scheduled and pending approval. So I have admin access to the new email direct, so I see all of these messages, and I can see messages that I have scheduled far in advance, and I can also see messages that are waiting approval. So I'm not going to touch any of these messages for Tish that are in here because there are people within Tish who can approve those, but I see this message for email direct, and I can go ahead and I can review and approve, deny, reschedule, or edit this message as needed. So those are a couple of different ways messages get released in the new email direct powered by Emma.